Well, it looks like everybody who plans to take a seat is seated. Can everybody hear me? I don't think it's on either.
You just have to stay close to her, get close to your mouth.
Testing, is that better? Everybody who wants to take a seat is seated. I guess we'll get started. So thank you all for coming tonight to get a handle on where we are with this Weston Avenue project planning. I'm Keith Donner, Village Administrator. We also have Michael Wadowski, our Public Works Director. We'll be also participating in the presentation, and Zach Larson from AECom, the design engineer that is working on the street design and project plans. So just a quick overview here. We want to give you a high-level overview of where we are. This project is at what we refer to as the 30% design phase, design stage. So the plans you're looking at over there are still a work in progress, and there's going to be some changes made undoubtedly as we go forward. I think we're getting certainly a lot of comments and people observing things that, you know, we want to try to see if we can avoid some conflicts and so forth as we go forward. So Zach will be talking about that. We also want to give you a little bit of overview on the right-of-way acquisition process, how the sewer and water access and assessments will be proposed to be handled by staff, subject to board approval, and then talk a little bit about the project costs and our next steps. So again, we are at a high level, a lot of detail yet to be figured out. So we're not going to have every answer tonight. We want to take your questions and input and address those questions as we go forward. So before we're done, of course, we'll open it up to questions. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Michael to give you a little bit of a project overview.
Sure. So at the kind of around March of 2020, some of you may know the Camp Phillips Center project. That one kind of was put to bed. So the Weston Avenue corridor was kind of looked at as the next highest priority within the TID District number 1. It's when staff started working on the Weston Avenue corridor plan between County Highway X and County Highway J. So, you know, some of you attended the public hearing back in May of 2021 that adopted the corridor plan. As part of that, it was a full development of this corridor, reconstructing the roadway and instituting water and sewer infrastructure and improving the drainage. So the purpose of this infrastructure project is to prepare Weston Avenue for the future, whether that's installing a new roadway in areas where it's failed, improving surface drainage, and also filling in the gaps with water and sewer. So the planned improvements are, you know, filling in those water sewer gaps, primarily from Von Kennel to Zinser Street, and then more or less progress way out to Highway J, where the two main gaps are. So we want to be able to loop the water main, make sure we have reliable service to those people already receiving water on that side. And then also the impact or the thought of putting in a multi-use path with the utilities for utility access as well as recreational use on that path. So as Keith mentioned, we're still in the beginning phases of this. There's no dump trucks and excavators parked outside right now. You know, so AECom was hired to work on the design for us. So survey, wetland delineation work was done this past summer. And there's enough information then to get the design to a 30% phase. There's still soil borings that have been going on, and data from that still needs to be analyzed and taken care of before we can keep moving forward with anything. And then that also brings us to today, where we're having our first public information meeting. So it's, I guess, enough on paper to hopefully get people's reactions, and not so far along that we can't make changes. So that's the goal of this meeting, is to kind of show you where we're at and see what sticks and doesn't stick, and what changes or things that residents may want us to do differently as we move forward with this project. So, yes, as we get into the roadway, I'll let Zach kind of take that over.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. Zach Larson, AECOM, highway designer for this project. Yeah, so as you guys all well know, the existing typical sections have some variations in them. Typically have 12-foot lanes with 3-foot shoulders right now. The new project is going to, if you want to go to the proposed typical sections, we're gonna have 12-foot lanes with 5-foot shoulders. I don't have a pointer, but we do have a 10-foot multi-use path that we're proposing. And then there's gonna be a terrace that, as Michael alluded to, we have to do a lot of infiltration calcs. We have to see how deep our ditches are gonna be, swales, potential infiltration ponds. A lot of that's gonna be determined if we're going a 10-foot terrace, an 18-foot terrace, or if we potentially have to put that pond on the backside, the multi-use path, or somewhere else. So we're still figuring a lot of those details out. As far as temporary closures and detour, we are going to build this project in 2 phases. We're going to go from the east half first. So we're going from Ryan Street to County Highway J in 2023. And then in 2024, we're going from County Highway X to Ryan Street. I do want to emphasize that access to local businesses and residences is going to remain open through construction. Everyone's going to be able to access their property. You may have to be on gravel for a few days, but you will maintain access.
Then as we talk about the water and sewer, the plan is to extend it the entire length of the project. For parcels currently not fronted by a main, the estimated cost based on the current construction costs and what would be installed on this project is just under $100 a linear foot. The proposal from staff is that we create a connection assessment. So it wouldn't be based on your entire frontage, it'd be based on the ability to connect to the system. So the proposal is to use a 200 linear foot average for that. So, if you own a mile of roadway, but you only have one house, your assessment's just that one connection for the house. It's not the entire length of the roadway. So that's the current proposal, is to just have kind of a connection charge, more or less, not a front foot assessment. So again, for the existing homes, on current village projects, the policy has been to then require connection upon when an existing system would fail, the property would sell, or if there's a sunset date. So a recent project this past summer, we used 20 years as the connection time. So with the project occurring in, say, 2023, connection would be required first. If your system is fine, you don't sell your house, it'd be 2043. Then at that point, when you connect, it'd be a 10-year payback period. So from the time the main is put in front of your house to your last payment, you're looking at about a 30-year time frame there. If you're an undeveloped parcel, connection would be required when development occurs. So if development doesn't occur, there's no connection required. So again, there's about 30,860 linear feet that is on the project that is currently not fronted by a water or sewer main. Again, there's 23 properties, so if you just multiply 23 times 200 feet, you get that 4,600 linear feet of frontage. So it's roughly only 15% of the entire project would be a part of the assessment. The other 85% of the assessment is paid for or financed by the village. So as you talk, it's a way to try to reduce that impact. It's not the corridor, those people on the street getting that entire burden of it. It's a portion of benefiting your property. So again, that's the current staff recommendation. Special assessments will be examined more in detail as we get, flush out the design more and more. They also require a separate public hearing and adoption by the village board. So, we'd probably be looking at, we'll get to the timeline later in here, but likely in late 2022, early 2023 is when we'd be talking special assessment meetings. There'll be other public information meetings just regarding the design and progress of the project in between now and then as well. So I guess stay tuned. And if you have questions, please, continue to provide feedback. I know we got a lot of it already this evening, this morning. So.
So I think everybody's had a chance to, or everybody that wanted to had a chance to take a look at the 30% plans over there. Again, this is very high level, but two types of acquisition or property rights that would be needed on a project like this typically. Some is that the village or municipality would need to acquire some property in fee so that we would have that right away from here till forever. And then there are what are referred to as temporary limited easements, temporary interests, which are things that are just typically requested or negotiated so that grading can take place on the private, what will remain as private property when the project is done. And then there's also going to be some wetlands to mitigate, which means if there's wetlands that are impacted that might be eliminated, there has to be wetlands created somewhere else, whether that's on a wetland mitigation bank property somewhere in part of our region here, or if we can create one ourselves, that's something that would remain to be seen. As was mentioned earlier, the wetlands have all been delineated. The permitting process is still something to be finalized. As Michael mentioned, there's some soil borings and things that need to be accomplished before we can determine what the amount of infiltration might need to be and the width of ditches and so forth. So at the 30% plan level here, again, 11.9, 12 acres is estimated to be required for additional right-of-way right now. So if you were to draw a strip all the way up and down the corridor, it'd be 13 feet wide on both sides. That's certainly going to vary, as you've noticed over there. There's going to be different impacts, and as we look at how we can minimize impacts to property, to structures, to whatever, that's going to change as we go forward. Again, the stormwater needs are probably going to be what has most impact on that, aside from any other impacts to structures. Again, we'll likely have a better idea then when we get to the 60% plan level. We're projecting that's going to be, April and the summer of this year. What we will let everyone know is that the right-of-way acquisition is going to need to follow what is specified in the eminent domain laws, section 3205 of Wisconsin statutes. We have a handout and an attachment over there that describes what landowner rights are and how that process works. And the reason that we follow this process is because it has provisions that protect both sides. I guess a little bit of an overview here on one slide. We have to complete, we get this project to a 60% plan level that identifies our right-of-way needs. The village board then has to adopt a right-of-way plat that is filed with the county clerk. And then the village would have to arrange to have appraisals of all the properties that are identified on the plat and do evaluation of those. We negotiate, and typically this is going to be done through a third party because the record keeping and all the process really is a very time consuming and it's a very time consuming thing, and there's timelines that need to be met and so forth. Another part of this process is that allows landowners to obtain a second appraisal at village cost or the acquiring agency's cost. So again, you can refer to the brochure that'll give you an idea of how that process works. I guess moving on from that, this is a project that has been included in our tax increment district #1 project plan. As Michael mentioned, when the effort for the Camp Phillips Center project was discontinued, this really became the focus, our number one project in project priority in TID #1. I guess as we consider carrying this forward, the estimate in the project plan is between both phases, and we're proposing this be done in 2 phases, from X to Ryan Street, and from Ryan Street to J. The former called phase. The phase from Ryan to J, we are proposing to be done first as phase 1. The part from X to Ryan as the second phase. So I guess not to, no, I guess the reason for that is that with our goal of starting construction on the first phase, the east phase, in 2023, we have fewer right-of-way or fewer landowners involved. We have something like 24 parcels, but only 15 landowners with some large tracts in there that are going to simplify that. And I think there, as you look on the plans, you can see that there's really only one, looks like one real challenging structure near what the village owns there as the golf driving range right now. Phase 2 then would be on the west half from X to Ryan. And we have a goal of being able to start construction of 2024 on that one. I guess to back up a little bit, then the funding sources for this project, and with a $21 million project as it's currently estimated, TID number 1 has the capacity to take this project on. If there were no other developments, no other projects that it was contributing to, we estimate we'd be able to close TID 1 by 2027 and pay for this project. Now there's another that's barring any changes by the state in terms of how they would allow us to value or to claim tax increment growth. And if we harken back to 2012, there was a change that kind of put TID number 1 underwater. So we need to be a little bit cautious about that. But otherwise, TID number 1 would close or has a closing date of 2031. Other options that we will certainly entertain or talk about with the village board, and this is, again, this is something that has to be ultimately approved by the village board. We could certainly look at financing by utilities. In a typical project, a lot of times with a developer, the developer will be required to put in the minimum size of sewer and water, which would be the 8-inch size, and public improvements of all kinds, the streets, the curb and gutter, whatever it is. And then the utilities would commonly put in additional facilities for looping, or what we call oversizing, say going from 8-inch to 12-inch. So some of those principles could be applied here with utility funds being part of the contribution towards this project. We don't believe that grants would be a good source here because we're seeing some challenges, and if we're going to follow DOT guidelines on right-of-way needs and clearance distances and so forth, there would be probably much greater right-of-way impacts for what we may be proposing. So I guess kind of, again, the quick overview here. So our next steps, we need to get this project to a 60% design level and identify those right-of-way needs. And then we'd have to, again, the right-of-way acquisition process and so forth. We hope that that would be accomplished here in April or spring of this year for phase 1, the east half, and then phase 2 later this year, August, early fall. And the plan specification and estimate completion, that's a terminology that the DOT uses. In other words, ready for bidding by spring of 2023. And then with construction, then hope to start in 2023. And then similarly for the west half the following year. So I guess based on where we are, that's probably going to be a challenge to get that done with our right-of-way needs and so forth. But right now, that's the goal. So there's certainly more to be discussed and to get refined here in the next 6 months and then over the course of this year as well. So I guess that pretty much concludes any of our prepared comments or presentation that we plan to do tonight. We did get a lot of comments already, but at this point, I guess we'll open it up to any more questions you might have about things that were discussed over there, not covered, or things covered in this presentation that you want some clarification on.
I did just want to point out too, tomorrow I'll upload a lot of these documents onto our website. So if you type in westonwi.gov / just Weston Avenue, it'll take you to the recording of this presentation, the hard copy of it, as well as the exhibits and those items as well. So if, you'll have a point of reference to go back to on the website. So. Otherwise, front row.
How much money currently does the TID have?
Well, that changes by year. There's collections every year, and the right now there is a fund balance, but there is debt that's projected to need to be paid out through the closure of the TID in 2031. So I guess the best answer I can give you, and this is if you want us to send you the projections, the financial projections on where TID 1 stands and how it is projected to go for the future, we can certainly send you a copy, or anyone here that wants a copy, or we'll make it available on our website on the Weston Avenue. Maybe that's the thing to do. We'll make it available on the posting that's going to be made on the website here for this project.
Do you have a ballpark?
I don't have that ballpark right now. Mark.
Just to dovetail on Mary's question, talking about how the TID can handle it. So then what do you mean by that?
That the current development and the current increment that is existing, if the TID remains open, would be able to pay for this project, and then have any of the costs that we're currently committed for that are already in current borrowings, and to pay for this project could be done by estimated in 2027. So the TID.
At the current 21, 22 million.
Right.
I just had a question about, I haven't paid a quarterly sewer and water bill for 40 years. Last time I think I paid. I know it's not bad. Do you have any idea what the average homeowner pays quarterly?
150 bucks. 150 to 180.
It's a quarter too. It's not a monthly bill. Quarter. Yep.
A little over 200 for water. Perfect.
Yeah, that's now. Are there any plans to include a high-speed internet cable in that ditch for the big? I know this.
We'll certainly be contacting the utility companies. A lot of times the telecommunications providers ignore any of the efforts to get their facilities included in projects, and then they come later and tear things up. So I think their challenge, of course, is that they need customers in order for them to justify putting their facilities in. I'm not sure who owns that though.
I was wondering if we
hook up, do we have to pay a fee to cap our existing wells?
Wells can still be, if you have an existing well and you connect to the public system, you can still use your well for irrigation and lawn watering, exterior use. So you don't have to abandon it. No,
There's no fee then?
there is a cross connection. There's a private well charge. What was that? Yeah, it's a, shoot, blanking on, I think it's a 5-year permit, and it's, honestly, it's like maybe $500. That might be on the high end. So is it 300? Yeah. Okay.
But the biggest thing with that is it's not used as much as you are. You're just gonna use it for irrigation. That's why they want to come to back. That's not case somebody goes to your grandson or whatever, maybe grab a hose, take a drink out of the hose. That it's not, back. It's got not that it's got bacteria. So they want to make sure it's got a safe test. That's why they follow them. And DNR requires it.
Correct. Yeah, I can get you the information as far as what a private well inspection costs to have that done.
Mike, I read on the planning commission reports that they were just kind of discouraging people from hooking up. Is that true?
Discouraging.
You know what I mean? Like they would rather not that you hook up the people that if you put the sewer water through the people that have conventional systems, they mentioned that they would rather that they didn't hook up.
No, I think, we would prefer people to hook up. Putting the infrastructure in, it makes sense that people use it. So I don't know where you heard that, or if you maybe misunderstood something there. It's in the minutes.
It's in the minutes, and they said that if you incur the lateral, you also will incur the frontage cost. Is that true?
It's your hookup fee, what we're communicating, what Keith is earlier said, that if you have a 40-acre parcel, they're gonna charge you a maximum of 200 feet of frontage. So if you want a hookup fee, it may cost, I'll do the math rate, it might cost you 20 grand.
Correct. Yeah, that's roughly what we're anticipating it to be.
That's it. So if your septic system fails, that's where they're telling you that you need to have, you're gonna have to hook up. They're not gonna allow you to pull a leak permit with the Maritime County Zoning Department to put it on your septic system. Because there's utilities in front of you and they want you to hook on this.
But that's not the extent, because 20 grand gets up to the property.
Yes. Yes. You pay for it, yes. Yeah, that's the connection. It depends upon the site, the soil, the trees, the
So Gary, typically, what's it cost for a lateral?
you just asked that. There's so many different circumstances that you have to almost estimate everything.
Mr. Barnett, I think I understand what you're asking. And I think what we have discussed in Plan Commission and Public Works meetings is that what happens is when we have situations where a individual home has a failure of a private system, and when they're within the village, incorporated village, we try to examine whether water and sewer is available to them. And what happens is that the cost for serving these individual properties becomes prohibitive, and that therefore discourages the whole idea of getting those properties onto public sewer and water for, to have the long-term assurance that it'll be there. So that's what happens, when it costs, $75,000, $100,000 to get service to a single home or a single property, it really makes no sense for us to require them to do that at their cost. And then therefore, does it really make any sense for the village to spend that kind of money? So those are the questions, kind of the juggling act we're trying to play. So in a project like this, I guess we understand that there's this kind of this barrier. And as we mentioned, I guess we kind of made a reference to it. There was at one time 2 different subdivisions proposed along this route. And if you think about how other properties may develop here over time, they're not going to pay for that extra infrastructure to get there, to get to their doorstep, to be able to develop those properties. So this is a case where the village has to consider playing the part of developer, if you will, because we have the opportunity to. Now, whether we choose to do that in the end here, I guess it's still, there's still a final decision to be made, but and maybe that's a long way of trying to answer your question. I hope that made sense.
Well, I think another thing, Keith, to bring up is, I think any comments came out of planning commission was going to be what happens if there's a certain amount of people that do not want to hook up. And that's where we discussed the cost of the distance, because there's so many larger parcels of property there. And how do we make this economical enough for them to hook up? And that's where the discussion is over 200 feet max that staff is communicating with, and trying to finance a lot of this through the TIF. I don't think it's a matter of, in this particular one, it might be another subdivision of the hookup fees cost, but a lot of the people that are, I mean, they're not going to just go by and everybody can hook on, because most of the systems are probably working in function.
I would just echo, I agree with everything on the planning commission. I think our concern is that no one loses their property, their home, or incurs some undue financial burden. No one wants that. We're very much on the side of the property owners, making sure that it's an economical situation.
Yeah, thanks. I want to go back to the TID question in another respect. I don't know if I covered this. I had it in the slide and I may have glossed over it. Another option that we should look at and have talked about looking at with our finance committee is partial closure of TID number 1. In other words, taking some property out and leaving some in, leaving enough in to be able to pay any additional debt we may want to take on. So that's another option that we should be examining and will be examining, I guess, as we talk with the board and the finance committee about, how this project may move forward. And it's going to take some financial analysis. It probably takes a little more detail than what, we've been able to do it to this point, but I think it's an option that we want to also entertain as we look at this project. In other words, if we would take that territory out, then, whatever's left in TID 1 may then remain open through the 2031 closure date, or possibly sooner, depending on whether development may take place in between now and the closure date. So.
I don't think I was following along close enough, but when the requirement of a homeowner is to hook up to the new or the planned sewer and water at a sale. So if I were to sell my home, now my house happens to sit back, I don't know, I've never measured it, 300 and some odd feet from the road. If I had to do this at property sale, it would significantly devalue my sale. So let's just say in a fair market, I could get $300,000 for my house, and because my house is so far off the road, I know that I have to pay $20,000 to hook up, and it doesn't matter what my frontage is. I understand that. But now to go so far, just as you said, you have to take every property as a different property and quote it. You really say this is what it costs to get your house hooked up. But for a house like mine that sits so far back off, no homeowner is going to come in a prospective buyer is going to come in and say, I'm going to buy your house for fair market and then stick $100,000 into hooking up the sewer and water. So in an example of such as that, just as you had explained, and actually we went through with the golf course, so I understood that you said that I was going to have to pay for the development, and I said, well, but I could file for a variance and pay a fraction, and then we made it affordable. In that scenario, is there an option for the person selling the home to get an exception made because of the cost would greatly, deter a prospective buyer? Or the requirement is at property sells, you evacuate your current septic and well and hook up to city sewer water.
I guess it would be a situation to consider another exception. If the cost of extending a lateral is prohibitive, I guess, I don't know, again, we'd have to probably define what's prohibitive. It would be determined, it'd be an excellent thing to include in the public hearing comment and then an action that would be taken at that. But in the past, we have made that exception.
Because I can understand if you're closer to the road and it's a reasonable cost, that's one thing. But when you're set so far off, I mean, that could be a very significant cost. And I have to have a lot of trees between the house and the, so the question is, do you rip up the driveway to put, you're talking.
Sure.
Substantial amount of.
I don't think
Don't you?
I don't think we're opposed to considering those things.
Asking,
Yeah.
So is there going to be, because there's nothing saying, I might live in my house for another 50 years, I might live in my house for another 6 months. I don't know where life takes me.
Sure.
So I'm looking at it as a current homeowner saying, is this potentially hampering my ability to sell my home or not?
Well, common sense would say yes, it's certainly going to be, but as a failing private system, potential liability also. But our desire is not to be unreasonable. I think we need to use our common sense, and I think we've tried to do that over time as we've gone through our whole special assessment process. Gary has a question or a point.
The question is, maybe that every house has to have a valuation before you purchase it. If it meets requirements in the state septic system, maybe they do just follow it in 20 years. You have a max of 20 years, after 20 years, you're there. Maybe that's an exception of the board.
Yeah, because you could see selling my home 2 years from now, this could be a pretty big impact. But then it is required 100% of homes within 20 years are hooked up to this. That is.
They would hook up at the 20th year, but then they still have another 10 years to pay.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
You don't pay until you hook up on that $20,000.
Right.
Yes, okay.
And that includes the frontage too?
Yeah. For an individual home. Now, I guess to clarify, if you were to subdivide that land, I guess there would be a connection charge for that, but for an additional 200 feet there, this would all be deferred assessment. So, I mean, it's the way of recovering some of the cost of this project that, is.
But the thing on our first meeting, it was kind of an understood thing that the TIF district would have enough money, available funds to take care of the frontage for the people that were on Weston Avenue.
But even so, TID law does not say that we shouldn't, or that we're supposed to give that away. We're supposed to still have some level of assessment when we do these things that are going to benefit a specific property. So
You do have that. See, when we hook up, you've got, the money keeps flowing into the village for sewer and water, correct? We have to hook up. The only thing that, we're talking about is the frontage for that 200 feet, which TID should pick up for the people who are, along. If it's for the greater good, is all I'm saying. And this is what this whole project is supposed to be about, for the greater good. And the greater good is for the people who are developing the land. The people who don't, they're unfortunately the ones that pay without getting anything.
So the proposal on the connection is to cover those homes that are, I mean, we recognize there are homes out there. Are those homes gonna stay? I don't know. But if their existing system fails, that's the connection fee, plus they have to take care of the lateral. I guess we're trying to kind of make this as painless as possible. But if you make the parallel to a developer, let's say a developer was asked to cover a quarter-mile of frontage to get to a subdivision, and we say, okay, hey, developer, you're responsible to put that water line in. Does this sound familiar, Carl? You're responsible to put that water main in, and we'll give you a ability to recapture part of your investment for 10 years. And if nobody connects then, through them, you're not entitled to any more. I think all we're trying to do is, again, minimize the impact, but if there's going to be additional connections, there should be some cost on those individual connections. But if there's extensions into the property beyond that, then that's not where the village gets involved. That becomes the developer's responsibility when they develop those and subdivide those properties. So again, that's kind of my.
I would just say from a planning commission standpoint, we try to assess and treat everybody in Weston on a similar basis. And that's just been 1 year. And your comment in regards to the ongoing fees that are being paid, those fees are being used to treat the water, to do ongoing maintenance. They're not, in my understanding, is that those fees are not going to allow us to do future development, right? They're not at that level. Maintenance level to keep the system functioning and provide, good potable water and good sanitary sewage to the people that are connected. So I would like to just say that, that's that stream of payments that's coming in every month.
Yeah, that's correct. I guess if you were talking about the water and sewer fees, that is absolutely correct. That's what it's used for, the water and sewer operation. Gary?
The other thing I would like to clarify, just so everybody's aware, let's just say you want to 40 person house in the middle. And let's just say that they passed the 20-year deal and your septic was fine. Well, you may have to replace your septic system, or your septic system may be fine, but if you're going to sell your house in the 20th year, are you paying the hookup fee of the $20,000, or are you going to take every 200 feet of all the rest of the remaining acreage and charge them that themselves? Or is that only going to be, and that's why I'm trying to clarify this so he has a better comfort feeling, is you're going to charge him for the sale of the property and the hookup fee of $200 for $20,000. But his remaining property would not be assessed for anything as of yet until whoever were the developer hooked onto that to extend off the for development. Then that person would pay.
Right.
The future developer. So you're not going to pay for anything on your house at all whatsoever unless you hook up or you were to sell it at this point right now. You would sell it, and if we can push along, I can get the board to acknowledge 20 years period. If the septic is in good condition, that's the only time you're going to pay for it. You don't have to hook up.
No, I realize that, but the thing about it is it's still a tax on the person that owns it. Let's say, like the way it's set up now, we're in like a green zone, so we can't develop. But Mary and I say, maybe we want sewer and water. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna bang us for the 20 grand, you're gonna bang us for the, another 20 grand for maybe for a lateral before the, what I mean?
Well, you're going to pay 20 grand for the hookup, okay? And you'll pay for lateral to get your house. But if you need to replace your septic system, and it's an amount, you might get $13,000 to $15,000 just for that. So you got to look at the turning factor of what are you getting. Now you don't have to worry about wells. You're on city water. So it's a point of where what's the best deal for you to rip up your lawn and put in the lawn system in, and you still got your well. It could very well be that's what you might want to do, but the village has got to continue to work their system, and there's also growth that continues to grow, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, right. It is basically it's for the people that are gonna come in and do it. You know, we got nothing against road, but why should we, the only thing I'm saying is why should we pay a 20 grand fee for that? I mean, I think that.
That's potentially 20 years down the road.
No.
It is, a connection fee, we call it, frontage fee, I don't care what you call it. We're still gonna be on the hook for that 20 grand
It's just,
at some point in our life.
it's another tax that, you know, we just don't want, we didn't ask for. It is for the village of Weston, for the greater good, and I get that. The only thing about it is how are you gonna compensate for that, Eric? How are you gonna compensate? Why should that be for free?
They blow through subdivisions all the time. I mean, it went past my.
Yeah, that's subdivision. This isn't subdivisions we're talking about. This is Weston Avenue. You're creating
So
a
would you rather
truck
put
lane.
down Weston Avenue, put a brand new street in and not put the water?
We don't need a new street. Yeah, why the new street? Why do we have to develop Weston Avenue? It's for future development. And I say, that's great. Then let the people that are benefiting from it pay for that.
So you're not gonna benefit from the new road.
From a new road, I'm fine with the road we got.
I think the
I mean, we've been on it for 50 years. You know, we've been paying taxes for 50 years. You know, my parents have been paying taxes for 50 years, or 100 years. You know, I mean, it's like, come on.
I completely understand where you're coming from.
Okay, appreciate the sentiments, Gary. If you want to take it up with us further, we certainly can do that. You have a question or comment?
I have a question. Or I have a comment. I guess my first comment is, a lot of these homeowners have been in this area for a long time, and I wish that the village of Weston would take that into consideration. And it's maybe not even their homeowners, it could be multiple generations. So it's not people who just moved in, right? I mean, this is like a family, right? Like, I mean, this is the neighborhood that people have grown up in for many generations, and I wish the village of Weston would take that into consideration. It gets emotional, right? Okay, so my next question is the village considering taking any houses? Purchasing any of the houses? Because there's many houses that, there's a line right through the front of our sun porch. So what does that mean for us?
Well, we would prefer not to. I don't know.
What
I
if
guess we,
want you to?
well, that would be something that
Because
comes,
this is ridiculous. I don't want-
that would
I
be
don't
something
want-
that comes up during the property acquisition negotiation process.
I don't want a car like running into my sun.
I understand.
That's ridiculous.
So these are things that yet need to be, I guess,
My
further,
question is, how does that work?
When are we gonna know?
we would know when we come to a final right-of-way plat state. April,
And do we get any input in that, or you're just gonna say this is what's gonna happen?
well,
Just be honest.
we have a 30% plan over here. You want to look at it after we're done? We can take a look at that. I didn't look at, I don't know which property we're talking about. What address are we talking about here?
It doesn't matter, because you guys have the same problems we do.
Okay,
So part of that too, a yellow line is kind of the grading line. And
I
some
get
of,
that, but that means that the sidewalk is still gonna be facing, I'm gonna be able to look out the window and see the side people riding bikes right there, and that's not what I have that house for.
okay, thank you.
I'm just wondering what's the whole point of all this? It says prepare Weston Avenue for the future development. Seems like they've been doing that for 20 years. Every 5 years, there's a big plan of, commercial and apartments and stuff, and it never happens. I mean, everything west of X is, I mean, there's still a lot of big, and they put 4 lanes in there, and it's the same as it did when you put 4 lanes in. I just don't understand why is there something in the pipeline that's going to be developed that you need this, or, I mean, to justify the $20 million, the amount of development, suddenly that 2-lane road's not gonna be big enough, you're gonna need 4 lanes.
Well, I don't know that was borne out in a traffic projection that was done as part of the design effort.
Yeah, the two-lane road, the thought would be as future development occurs, there's turn lanes created when intersections meet. And besides that, development would generally come off of a side street. It's not where you'd have a residential or a high volume driveway every, 400 feet that turns into a bottleneck. A two-lane road can handle, 7,000, 8,000 vehicles a day. Well, as long as it's designed well. Ross Avenue by like Crystal Finishing, that's about 7,000 vehicles a day. That's a two-lane road. As far as I know, it functions well. Nobody's complaining about traffic backing up.
Whatever happened to the frontage road along south of 29 that was supposed to feed all the business park and all that back there?
That would have, I guess, predated any time I would have been here at the village. I've been here 11 years. It's first I heard of a frontage road.
I don't remember any proposal for a frontage road either. I don't know what area you were referring to there?
That house that's way down in the hollow, right on the corner of Camp Phillips from Highway 29. That whole, there's acres back there that are like, a Home Depot and apartment building.
Oh, you're talking about the Camp Phillips Center. Well, as we referenced earlier on, any efforts to do that development were stopped back in 2019, 2020. So once that occurred,
Anything planned right now for Weston Avenue, or is it still?
well, it's a situation, I guess, where the TID has a capacity to take this project on. It's something that that was identified as a future need here. Weston Avenue is in the urban classified transportation system, an arterial street in the area, I guess, something that the traffic is increasing over time. And there has been some interest in some development along that corridor. So this was a logical project to be put into TID 1.
People who are living there are driving more. That's not our problem. It's for the greater good.
Let's just let the people that are benefiting pay. That's all.
That's all we're asking.
Okay,
All right.
I've heard there are a number of board members here tonight that are hearing your comments. So I'm not sure we can make any more progress on that tonight other than you voiced your opinions. So I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
For the next meeting, we're going to do a study on this recreational path, and we're just going to yes or no, or do we do studies on them when people up this rec path? How does that work?
These are generally things that are included on street reconstruction projects as amenities for the village as a whole. Now, whether it has to be put in today or it could be put in 10 years from now, I guess that could be certainly considered as an option on this whole thing. Nothing is carved in stone.
Do they show the cost of what the recreational path?
That can be broken out, sure. Okay.
I have to just comment on that if there's still going to be residents on Weston Avenue, we could use a path now. The people that live on Weston Avenue can't really use Weston Avenue. I think you have to get out there at your own peril and get to the line if you want to be safe doing anything. So I would say.
Okay. Anything else? Gary?
I was just going to make a comment on the sidewalk, the extra sidewalk in the south side. Quarter mile, I didn't think we discussed that in the plan. Meeting.
Okay.
That was included in the original plans. If we wanted to get rid of it, I guess the sidewalk was there initially and was never from my recollection, told to review rules.
I thought we decided that once we did the bike path, that we took care of both.
Okay.
both, sites for sidewalk.
If so, that's my bad.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So the regulation I have also is the north side with the multi-use pack, and then nothing at all.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. I think if we check minutes of several meetings, you would find that.
Sure. All right.
Okay, we had another couple questions. Steve?
No, that was my recollection. I believe we were actually in this building here. That's one of our last meetings when Walter was presenting some information. Really got was included in here in his presentation because the planning as well as where they looked at the corridor plan, as well as the access points just off of that corner. Whether there was going to be 5 meetings, my recollection is that it would be gone. And it wasn't going to have what it is to the west. We didn't want to have anything with a lot of maintenance or anything like that. So I would encourage you to go back and look at the previous meetings.
Sure. I know we had another meeting about this somewhere in between though. That was September, the one you're referring to, and then there was another one at a village hall when we had a plan commission meeting. But we'll verify that. And don't even need to, I guess. We can just make the change. But we didn't.
We have the preserve home in Weston, but then we have Monmouth in the house next to us, and she passed away a number of years ago. And so that house is vacant. No, we don't plan to have anyone in there use that home, whatever. Would we be charged an extra $20,000 because there is a home, a house there, which is, you know, it's deteriorating. Nobody will ever live there.
Is it a single parcel or is it 2 parcels?
There's a driveway between.
Well, it's the original farm home in which I haven't, I didn't choose to rent it out because it's in the middle of the farmyard. I haven't chose to burn it down. It's been vacant, but it's very presentable. The outside looks really great. So it just sits there. My question is, can we leave it as is, or are we gonna get charged for another 200 foot of frontage? Even though it's vacant and will remain vacant.
Well, if there's no request to hook up, you would still, but there would still be the potential charge for that when a hookup were to be needed or requested.
Otherwise, the best thing for them to do is join the parcels.
How would you get, well, if you needed service, individual premises are supposed to have separate services too, so.
Yeah, but right now he's not using.
Sure. It's a unique circumstance. Yeah, I guess if it were to need a connection, it would get a charge. I guess that would be the only, to me, that would be the common sense thing, that both properties or both dwellings would need a connection at some point in time. So therefore, unless you were to split it off, then I guess, then you would only have, right now you'd have the one outstanding or the one deferred. And if it were ever to divide, then the other one would have that charge that would be due. Dan, do you have a question?
Yeah, the bike path or utility path, as you guys call it, snow removal on that is village or homeowner?
It's a multi-use.
The village would take care of it, just like with the village, we plow all of our other multi-use paths, so it would just
And
be
then
added to the road.
so my residence is on the side with the bike path, so between the bike path and the road, you have that, right, there'll be a corridor to go past the bike path onto this road.
Yep.
That section, who's responsible for?
That's still the homeowner, like you would your regular driveway. But you wouldn't have to go up and down Weston Avenue. Gary?
My understanding with the conversation earlier, there won't be no additional assessment for vacant land, in my case, farmland, only for your 200 foot of residential.
Yeah, if you have an undeveloped parcel, there's no assessment because there's no improvement that would get the, so it'd be once development would occur, that then there would be the assessment, the connection charge for a new development. But, if there's nothing there to connect to, there's no assessment for that undeveloped land.
The only thing I want to make comment is that should be known also to when you're selling the property, so you're not getting fair market value for the property. That also now has that $20,000 assessment. So whoever.
So quick question though with that. So if you were to buy a parcel, say you wanted to buy 2 acres from somebody and put a house on, you're going to incur a cost to put in a well and septic system. So, I mean, it's maybe not equal, but I don't think it'd be,
No, but most cases you buy a lot, and all you have is your equipment fee.
True.
Which is $750.
Yep.
Whatever it is, then your ladder. Now this would be $20,000. It would just be off quite a bit.
Yeah, sure, okay.
I guess I would look at that as, say, I got 4 acres, so I got 4 acres right on up front.
Yep.
And where I'm zoned now, I can't sell anything because I have to have at least 2.
Sure.
Okay, that put me in one position. Then I have land.
Yeah.
But, under this new thing here, if I wanted to sell an acre, I could sell an acre because it has access to this sewer and water, which would also make that acre much more valuable with that access than it is the way it is right now. So you figure that $20,000 in sale price of that acre to cover that hookup. So instead of getting $15,000 for an acre that has no utilities, you get $35,000 for one that has only needs laterals. I guess that's the way I look at it. I think, isn't there something on Weston Avenue that's for sale now by Aaron that has sewer and water going on?
I'm not familiar with the place.
There's no sewer and water in front of it.
That stopped at Von Kennel. Well, sewer and water stops at Von Kennel.
Yeah, and again, I'm assuming you could rezone your property or divide it to the 1 acre, I guess. Your point is probably a good one. I don't know what it could be rezoned to right now, but that we could certainly get an answer to that. Okay, I guess if there are no other questions for the group anyway, I thank everybody for their input. We have a lot of work to do yet, and sure we'll get some more feedback from our board and the plan commission. And if you have any other questions tonight, certainly we'll be around for a little while. Or we also have contact information on the handout. You can contact us at the information or at the address and email that we gave you. So thank you very much. Oh, one more.
One last thing. I brought this up at a previous meeting. I understand the industrial park is just down Ryan Street. But I think for all of us that live up and down Weston Avenue, I think would be a great and an easy thing to do. They have a designated truck route. Now that was brought up at the last meeting, and they made it sound like that'd be hard to do. Tell every truck driver that they should get off on J come back on Schofield Avenue, it's an industrial park. But really, you can do it today because my son drives a rig, and that truck route automatically comes up on his screen if there's a designated truck route. That would eliminate so much traffic that's unneeded and roaring up and down Weston Ave. Why don't you pursue that?
Could certainly look into it. I don't know if there is.
Yeah. Is that something that, can you petition for that?
I guess I don't know the answer to that. We'd have to look into it.
I guess it's logical to not use this.
Well,
Logical route to the industrial park is Jay.
right, but I know that,
The only thing closer is Ross Supply, obviously, that's got the main driveway going off Ryan. That would close to truck traffic and use as an employee entrance. It might make more sense because they can't go north on Ryan, they have to come up Ryan to Weston. But you would, and I know a lot of GPS probably automatically takes them off at Camp Phillips to get there. But I think more than, we must know they can do that.
well, yeah, I'm doubtful that we could do that. I don't, but we could certainly check into it a little bit.
No, it's not helpful because my son runs into that same situation almost every day that he's on the road. You can somehow, and I don't know all the details about it, but on a GPS, you can override it with a truck route. That the truck route shows on his screen the route he has to take and not use residential roads. It's very easy to do, he said.
It all comes down to enforcement, but you can post a road class B, which means that they're not allowed to run it unless they have business there. And that's the thing you've got to remember is that Progress Way has businesses on it that are going to require semis to run it. So it's like anything, you could post Schofield Avenue out here at 25 miles an hour if you wanted to. If you don't have the law enforcement to enforce it, it's not going to work. And I'm not arguing with what you're saying, Gary, about that. You'll get some of the truckers that might do that. But the problem's going to be is when it comes to enforcing that part of it, without having a presence there 24/7, you're not going to be guaranteed that will reduce it to the amount that you're hoping. That's the, when it comes to posting, that's kind of what it is. It's class B. Which cuts you down on the weight limit. But say you're not a truck route, you can try it. You're still gonna have to have the cops out there and figure out which trucks are going where, because they're gonna have to know the destination. And those businesses that are out off of Weston Avenue right now, that some of them are requiring semis to drop. So that's kind of, you can check into it, but it's just, it's not a save.
I was just gonna second that. I was just gonna say, Gary did bring that up last time, and you did say you were gonna look into it last time, and it doesn't sound like you did. So if you absolutely could look into it, you would then feel the way I think that would be viable.
Sure.
I remember that comment.
And if they put the new road in, will there be no load limits on the road? After they put this new Weston Avenue in, will all the load limits go off?
that's typically our expectation. When we build a new road, we build it to standards where we don't have to post it. So yeah, we try to build an all-weather road so it is able to be used all year round and not to have to be posted for spring weight limits.
So basically what we want to do here is make this a truck route, Weston Avenue.
It's really to build a road that's going to last, you know, so we close it from X to Ryan during spring weight limits, and it's open from J to Ryan though during that time. So yeah, I mean, to the point though, I know it still gets.
Yeah, if you're not forcing it.
I'm not the police department. I can't.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Why do you close it? You can't enforce it.
We try, you know, to prolong the life of the road is the reason you post it, because the soils and the structure of the pavement isn't meant to handle that traffic. So when we rebuild the road, we try to rebuild it so it can handle that traffic, not just so we can make it a truck route, but just, you know, the longevity of the road is that much better.
Did they do that when they built the sewer lines from X to Von Kennel?
I don't believe so. It is the worst part.
And that's the newest part.
Yeah, well, from Von Kennel to Ryan got new pavement, 12 years ago?
No, we're talking accent.
From-
Yeah, you're going X to Von Kennel, so that was like 20 years ago. And yeah.
Weston was
Yeah.
redone in 2012.
Yeah.
2012 was the Von Kennel to Ryan,
30 years ago. Changes.
yeah,
But
but
they're gonna need new sewer laterals under there that haven't been used.
you wouldn't replace them if the water and sewer lines are still good. We don't replace that. It'd just be the pavement above it. Those utilities are 10 feet deep. The pavement structure, you go down 3 to 4 feet and then build up from there. One question in the back.
Who's liable for any accidents on that pipe path? If it's coming out of your driveway. It's your problem.
So if you were to hit somebody,
Yeah, so they hit you.
And they're stuck somewhere.
I think it's still up to a walker or a biker to be conscious of that.
I can answer this question.
All right.
There's a bike path that goes, I live in Bobble Lane. There's a bike path that runs downhill there and across. Years back, my daughter was turning to the subdivision, kid out of high school, was driving a bike. The brakes didn't work, couldn't stop. He hit her in the side of her car. Injured himself, it damaged the vehicle. Ultimately, their homeowner's insurance was responsible and paid. So the property owners. So the bike hit the bicycle, the car was pulling down Bobble Lane. He went down the bike path, hit her dead center in the passenger side floor. And he was deemed responsible for the accident.
So the bicyclist was deemed
The
responsible.
bicyclist was responsible for the accident, and the owner's insurance reimbursed us to repair the car, and his medical bills were his own.
Sure.
We're not responsible for it. Now, does that hold every time? I don't know.
All right.
So I guess it depends on his.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
All right, thanks again,
We're good.
everybody.